Legend Total War here, and today we're doing another unit tier list using Tier Maker, this time covering the Vampire Coast, the other DLC race for Warhammer 2. Now this race here probably has one of the most unbalanced rosters out of any race in this game, so just try to bear with me here. So once again, this is based off Legendary difficulty campaign, very hard battle difficulty, no mods, no multiplayer, just based off campaign experience. They've got one of the smallest rosters in the game, and it's incredibly unbalanced. Anyway, let's just jump into it. First thing we're going to cover are the melee infantry. Okay, so what we got here are the Deckhand mob, which are basically just zombie units. They are useless, utterly useless. They have no killing power, no holding power. They're cheap. That's the only thing they've got going for them, but they are so bad. On very hard battle difficulty, you'll be wondering what the hell happened to them, because they'll just disappear in the blink of an eye because they are so squishy. And then you've got the Deckhand mob pole arms, which are also poop stack. They're also trash, because these ones here, they just don't last very long at all. Even though these ones here are anti-large, they have like no melee defense, so they just cannot hold the line for you. But you don't have a choice sometimes, you gotta get them. But they are absolute rubbish. Because a lot of the time with the early game Vampire Coast, what you're doing is raising the dead rather than recruiting from buildings, because you don't want to sit in your home province, you just want to go out and start plundering. And you just got to make use of whatever is available. They're not good, but if there's nothing else available, you got to get them. Okay, next up in the melee infantry category, we have Depth Guard, I think. So, Depth Guard. The problem with them, alright, they're actually good fighters, but if we have a look at the issue with them, right? These ones here are like dirt cheap in terms of upkeep, right? But if we have a look at Depth Guard, their upkeep cost is possibly one of the most expensive melee infantry units in the game. And they do have some special abilities. You know, Frenzy and the Hunger, so they can regenerate a little bit, which is good. But for their price point, I think that is extremely low value for a tier 4 and tier 5 unit. Like this is not a tier 5 unit in my opinion. They should not be at that tier, and they should not be at that cost. But they are good fighters. It's going to be difficult for you to get the actual value out of them. So I'm going to put them at C tier. I don't think that they're poop stack. I don't think they're trash. I think they're better value than these guys here, but for 300 gold, there are vastly better options in the Vampire Coast roster. So, you know, get them, don't get them, that's up to you, but I don't think they're very good. Alright, then we've got Sirens. Now, this is one that I actually think is a decent melee infantry. So if we go and have a look at the Sirens, it's a tier 3 unit, so we get them before the Depth Guard. Same number of entities. They are faster, I believe. Yeah, 36 speed isn't too bad for Depth Guard, but 48 speed, they're almost cavalry. They're a little bit on the squishy side if you're dealing with magic attack, but if you're not dealing with magic attack, you've got 75% physical resistance. They cause Charmed, which means that they debuff the enemy units that they're fighting with by minus 10 melee attack, so that's really good. That's like way better even than poison. They do armor piercing, and they're very good for regen, and they're way cheaper than Depth Guard. So what I wouldn't spam them unless you've got Lostra. She's actually really good with Sirens because she gives them extra physical resistance. But what I would do is, if you really want to get some melee infantry, these ones here are great for holding back the enemy because it slows them down so much, and your invocations of Nehek will go a lot further with them because they've got low hit points but high resistance, so it's just worth a lot more, as opposed to high hit points and no resistance. So they work better for the armies that you can potentially build. So that's all the melee infantry, so let's move on to missile units. Alright, now Vampire Coast, they've got some good missile units, and boy do they have some bad ones as well. So first up we've got the gunnery mob with the pistols. These are the low range ones, essentially the tier 1 variant. These are not good, but I think they're slightly better than Poop Stack, because at least they can do a little bit of damage, and they do have fire while moving, at least fire in front of them, which honestly isn't really even that useful because they're so slow. I'm going to put them at C tier because it's very difficult to get a lot of value out of them. They're not overly expensive, it's just they don't have long range, they don't do that much damage, and they're just kind of crap. That's the only really way to put it. They're just really, really crap. And then we move on to the handgun variant. So this one here, I think it's 145 range. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, 145 range as opposed to 90 with this one. This one here does armor piercing damage. This one here, I mean, I'm sure it does a little bit. This is kind of what you want to build your army with to begin with. But it's really just going to come down to the availability of raising the dead, at least in the early stages of the campaign, because I don't recommend sitting around waiting to recruit them from your settlements. You should just beeline out of your cities and just start plundering. So I'm going to put this one here at B tier because it is good. It definitely doesn't belong in A tier. It is good, especially for the early game. Then we've got the hand cannons here. So these do a lot of damage, but they suffer from low range. So they're good, but going up the tier here, you're going to get them a little bit later. You're not going to be able to find them so easily in Raise the Dead pools. So they're not going to be as convenient to recruit as these guys. So I'm going to put it at B tier because they do pack a punch. They're just not convenient to recruit, in my opinion, because I usually don't build this building here. The Vampire Coast buildings are actually kind of crap. I usually focus entirely on the economic buildings and then just go and raise the dead, or use my shipbuilding. And if I'm going to focus on shipbuilding, I usually focus on something else, which we'll get to later. So I just don't prioritize a unit, but it is a damage dealer. It can do a good job. They're squishy. All of these units here are squishy, except for these three, really. But it can dish out some damage. Alright, then we've got the Deck Gunner here. This is actually a really good unit. I'm going to put it at A tier. It's comparable to Rattling Guns for Skaven, because, I mean, they do a lot of damage, high range. Their only downside is that they're a little bit inaccurate. They're a little bit low on ammunition, and they're a little bit on the expensive side, and they're tier 4, so that you kind of get them quite late. So they are definitely a good unit. I'd recommend getting them. But if you think that this unit here is as good as a Rattling Gun, you are absolutely mistaken. Rattling Guns are way better. Because you only need like 4 Rattling Guns, or a couple of Rattling Guns in your army to dish out loads of damage, and then you just have Jezzail. So if you're just thinking, oh, a Rattling Gun will lose to a Deck Gunner, yeah, but a Jezzail will snipe it before it gets a chance. Because Rattling Guns and Jezzails work well in a team, and Jezzails can outrange these and snipe them really, really quickly, because they got like no hit points. So against a weapons team, this doesn't have like a Jezzail variant. It's sort of like a hybrid between it, because it is a long range unit. So I just want to make that distinction, because I have heard the Deck Gunners being compared to Rattling Guns. I just don't think they work as well in terms of teamwork as Rattling Guns. Okay, then let's move on to the bomber unit here. What's it exactly called? It's called the Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob Bombers. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, because this unit here performs really well in auto-resolve, which is actually bad, because if you're spamming in your army loads of these units, and you're relying on auto-resolve, right, the problem that you have, which is part of the problem with the dwarfs, is that if you encounter a battle where auto-resolve won't win for you, you're forced to fight it manually. And because this unit performs so well in auto-resolve, it overestimates how good it is, and then you're on a field battle, and they perform like crap. Whenever the AI Vampire Coast has tons of these, they definitely do seem to win in auto-resolve, right? But then I go into the battle, and these guys here do nothing. They're really crap, and they're really prone to friendly fire as well. They're super low range. They've got barely any ammunition. They do have high damage, but it's just really difficult to get a lot of value out of them. Even for that cheap price point, I think that they're complete crap. So I'm going to put them under trash. I will not bother with them at all. You can run into a trap with campaign if you recruit units that are really, or like a lot better in auto-resolve than they are in manually resolve. My recommendation on legendary difficulty, avoid recruiting those units. Okay, you'll end up in a trap where it's like, oh, valiant defeat, that doesn't seem too difficult, and then you will have a very, very hard time winning the battle, because these guys here are way worse than what the game thinks that they are. Okay, so that's all the missile infantry. So let's move on now to... I'm going to have a category for flying units now, because there's a lot of flyers. Alright, starting with the most basic one, we've got bats. Bats are trash. Throw them in there. Okay, the only real use for bats is to take out enemy artillery units, but you're a good artillery faction. You've got other options than bats. My recommendation is don't bother with them. And then we've got the various deckhand droppers, right? So let's go through these before I absolutely shit all over them. The lowest one here is a deck dropper, which is a tier 3 unit. It's cheap, but it's tier 3. Okay. 24 entities. They don't do much damage. They don't have much range. Okay. And then there's the deck droppers with handguns. These ones here do a little bit more range, but you got 24 entities, right? And these ones here outrange them anyway. The benefit of them is that they're flying. And then you've got the deck droppers bombers, right? Well, let me tell you about deck droppers. They are trash! They're all rubbish. Absolute garbage. The lowest performers in the roster by far. If there should actually be a lower tier down here called shit stack, and that's where they belong. Maybe I should move all of these up to C just to leave these guys at the D tier because they're that bad. Absolutely awful. All three of them. My recommendation is avoid recruiting this. The fact that these ones here are considered tier 4 is disgusting. They're tier 1 at best. They're awful. Don't recommend them. Complete crap. And this one here, of course, complete crap as well. Anyway. And then we've got the Deathstreak Terrorgeist. Deathstreak Terrorgeist is good. You can Doomstack with them, but I'm going to put them under A tier because I don't think that they're a great Doomstack. Just because of the way that the campaign works with the Vampire Coast. If you want to spam them in your army, you totally can, and it's fine, but it is not the most optimal thing by quite a significant margin. So I'm going to leave it at A tier, about the same sort of efficiency as the deck gunners, right? They're called deck gunners. I can't remember half their names because I barely ever recruit most of these units. I've used them all, but I barely ever recruit them, and I never pay them any attention. They're like that one weird guy who works in the basement. Hey, what about me? You go back in the basement. I don't want to even know your name. You know, that's what these guys here are. Anyway. Alright, so that's all the flying units. So let's move on to monsters. Alright, now these guys here are considered monsters. The Vampire Coast doesn't really have cavalry, but this is the closest thing you've got to cavalry. Basically, direwolves. They're called scurvy dogs, but you know, they're just reskinned direwolves. They're not bad. They're quite useful. If you want an anti-artillery unit, instead of getting bats, get yourself some direwolves, okay? Some scurvy dogs, because these ones here, despite being super squishy, at least they dish out damage really quickly, and they're very fast, and they've got Vanguard deployment. Definitely a recommended unit if you're going to focus on taking out enemy artillery. I might even go so far as to put them at B tier because they are very cheap as well. If we have a look at them, tier 2, well, relatively cheap. So if we compare that to bats, where are the bats up in here? There they are. Bats are tier 1. Yeah, I'd way prefer scurvy dogs, like speed 95. Speed. These guys here are faster, but they get shot down really quickly. AI prioritizes them a fair bit. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that at B tier. I don't mind the scurvy dogs. I don't mind them. Okay, other monsters. Alright, so these ones here. What are they even called? God damn, I don't even know what this one's name is. Like, animated hulks. Right, animated hulks. Yeah, they're garbage. Alright, in the trash pile with you. Whoops. In the trash. The reason for that is because... Oh my god, Legend is just dumping on this whole race. Yeah, it's all crap. Okay, this unit sucks. Okay, tier 2 unit. Okay, it's slow. As a monstrous infantry, the best monstrous infantry are like way faster than that. I just don't find that their like stats are good for its price point. It's on very hard battle difficulty. I have such a hard time making these units actually do their worth. I know that they're supposed to sort of hold the line a little bit, but I would much rather get a couple more units of complete rubbish than these guys here. Or, I don't know. I mean, they're all still rubbish, one way or another. So, I'm going to put that one in trash. You've got better options. This is the big thing with the Vampire Coast, right? It's not that this unit here is weak. It's just that, I mean, it is weak. It's that you have some units in your roster that are so much better performers than the rest of them. There's such a huge difference between the best performers in this faction and the worst performers. Like, these ones here... compared to other factions, maybe be like, oh, but they're comparable to Vampire Count zombies. Okay, yeah, but the thing is to keep in mind with Vampire Counts is that their entire roster is crap. But the Vampire Coast has couple of really good units, and everything else is crap. Okay, so yeah, animated Hulks are definitely poop stack. Then we've got the Rotting Prometheans here. I hate them. Poop stack. Probably one of my least favorite unit in the entire game. Just slow, weak, dies really quickly, big, easy to shoot. I hate them. I hate them so much. They're okay as a summon if you just want them to die, just to hold the enemy back a little bit. But as an actual unit to recruit, I never bother getting these two. Hate them so much. Alright, I'm dumping on this one a fair bit. Alright, then we've got the Mournguls. I like Mournguls. I actually think they're quite good. They're decent in melee. They've got a lot of missile resistance. Actually, yeah, let me just confirm that. Yeah, they've got a fair bit of missile resistance. And they stalk. And they can regenerate health. If you're going to go monster units, I'm going to go... Oh, yeah. I'm going to put them here. These are good. Don't go with this. It's like what I said before. It's not that this unit on its own is bad. It's just that this unit here is vastly better. It's tier 3 at the same tier as this one here. Like, get yourself, if you want to go with Monstrous Infantry, this one here will serve you so much better. Because Stalk and the Hunger plus the extra missile resistance, their animations, the way they jump around, they tend to push units out of the way quite easily. They've got a good amount of mass. These ones here are slower than them. It's just a vastly better unit. Alright, then we've got the Rotting Prometheans with Gunners. Now, they're essentially the same combat stats, but these guys here have guns on top of them, which does make them a little bit more useful. So I'm going to put them at C tier. These ones here aren't completely hopeless, but they're not very good. Okay, now in terms of monster units, the Bloated Corpse is considered a monster unit. Oh, it's so good! I love Bloated Corpses. I used to hate them because I'm not a fan of suicide units. But the thing is with Bloated Corpses is that you don't recruit them from military barracks. These units here, you raise the dead, and they're available everywhere. And their job is to you just raise the dead and throw them at the enemy, and you try to clump them up and blow them up. And they can do vastly, like, way above their value. You just have to not get attached to them. If you don't get attached to them and don't mind when your bloaty boys die, and you just be like, how many did you kill? 200? Yay! 200 Phoenix Guard just died. You know, for a tier 0 unit, essentially. That's what they're there for. And it's also amazing when the AI has them, because the AI doesn't prioritize them very well, and you send your flying unit down to just Super Mario bop it on the head and just blow up their own units. Fantastic unit for both the AI and the player. Really, it doesn't deserve the Doomstack status, but A grade. With the Bloated Corpse. I owed the Bloated Corpse an apology a while back, but I actually really like them now. I do like my bloody boys. I don't put them in my Doomstacks, but in my early game armies, very, very useful and have got me out of some pinch situations. Alright, then we have the Rotting Leviathan. Now, this is in the same sort of sense as the Deathstreak Terrorgeist. You could make a Doomstack of them, and I've done that, but I don't recommend it. It's a good unit. It's a strong unit, and you can deliver its worth. But its biggest weakness is that it is so goddamn big. It's kind of the Dreadsaurian problem, where units that get so big become really susceptible to anti-large infantry, because so many entities can attack it at any given time, and also just any kind of missile unit. They just absolutely wreck them. So I don't really recommend this unit as a Doomstack, but if you really want to build like a sort of balanced build, these units here can perform quite well, but they need to be having some kind of other support. Either melee infantry or monstrous infantry. Just don't let them get surrounded, because it's really bad for them. And then we've got the Necrofex Colossus, which I guess we could classify that as artillery. So maybe we'll move on to artillery now. Yeah, because that is classified as monsters, but it's also artillery, so save that for the end there. Okay. So, we're moving on to artillery here. The mortar. We'll get to this one. The mortar. I think it's a pretty good unit. Definitely good to get in the early game. I'm going to put it at B tier, and the Carronade at A tier, because the Carronade is just way more accurate. I know they come in a little bit later, but I just think that if you're going to get early game artillery, the Carronades are just significantly better. You know, tier 2 is not too bad for this one, and same thing with this one, tier 3. I think their price point is good. I just think that the Carronades are better. They're way more accurate. You get more range out of it. And range is really important with a missile-based faction. So yeah, I'm going to put that there. Alright, now the last two. The Queen Bess is technically a Regiment of Renown. but it also kind of isn't, because you can only ever get one, right? It doesn't matter how many times you do the right. If you've got one active, you can't get another one. So you can't spam them. So I made an exception for this one because pretty much everyone always recruits a Queen Bess. This unit here, while you can't spam it, it is such a good unit that it deserves the Doomstack status. Because it just does so much damage in sieges and field battles, as long as you're not, shooting your own troops. Just a fantastic unit, really, really good. But yeah, you only get one of them. And then, well, the thing is, if it gets killed, you can always just get it back quite easily. But yeah, you can only ever have one at a time. And then we have the Necrofex Colossus, the Doomstack unit. Now, the thing about the Necrofex Colossus is that as a unit on its own, it's actually a little bit overrated. People seem to think this unit is absolutely unstoppable, and it isn't. The main reason why this unit is so high above everything else is because it is one of the fastest Doomstacks that you can create in the game. If we have a look at this particular campaign, the way to go about building an army super quickly, right, is all come down to the shipbuilding, right? So if we have a look at this, you can get Necrofex Colossuses really, really quickly. It doesn't matter if we're playing as Noctilus or any of the other Legendary Lords, but getting this extra growth here to tier 5 is way faster than building your other settlements. And then you've got additional growth, which one is it? Here. So if you focus on the growth buildings first and level up your Lord to include growth, you can get the composite hull really, really quickly, and then increase your pirate crew recruitment capacity by a ton, and then you've got access to these units really, really early. Now, of course, instead of going down this way here, you could go up here, but I just don't think the Rotting Leviathan is anywhere near as good as the Necrofex Colossus. Same thing with any of these other units here. And also, giving you extra casualty replenishment and pirate crew capacity, this is where the real value of the Necrofex Colossus comes down to. They're not just super strong, they're also super convenient, and also really, really cheap, because with your main Lord, whichever Lord you're playing as, you can also reduce the upkeep cost significantly using your shipbuilding. And even on Legendary difficulty, you end up having Necrofex Colossus at just dirt cheap prices. So it's not just about, oh, this unit's strong, good, A+. It's not just it's strong, it's cheap, relatively speaking. It's super convenient, super quick to get. You can spam them with no real downside, and they work really well together. They can be, they can regenerate health because they're technically considered undead, just like steam tanks can be healed with life magic. This one can be healed with vampire magic. And another great thing about the Necrofex is that not only are they artillery, they can fire while moving. They have a secondary gun. That doesn't show how much ammo it has, but it does have a secondary unit. They're reasonably quick, and when they reach half health, they actually spawn a unit of these guys here, so you can use them to hold the enemy back. Just truly one of the most fantastic units in the game, not in terms of strength, but just in terms of overall versatility. It's so overpowered compared to the rest of the absolute filth that goes in this roster. Everything else is complete shit compared to the Necrofex Colossus, to varying degrees. So that's my tier list for the Vampire Coast. The most unbalanced roster out of any race in this game, I think. But, some people enjoy playing it. And you don't have to play it that way, don't get me wrong. But this is about what you're going to get effectiveness out of. By all means, play for fun. If you want to recruit nothing but these poop stack units, all the more power to you. You can probably make it work, but my god, you're going to have a harder time than if you just go for this lovely piece of shit right here. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time, fuckers. Bye.